someone came up to you and asked you, why haven't we found Bigfoot yet? What exactly would you tell them?
I would say possibly, why are we unable to replace fossil fuels? Why are we still unable to find a cure for cancer? Why can we not confidently confirm what dark matter is? And the answer is that there is no one true answer. Yes, there's many different small aspects as to why we can't replace fossil fuels or cure cancer. But there's no one true answer, and that's the same with the Bigfoot phenomena. You know, when someone says, why haven't we found Bigfoot? I can't give you a definitive answer. I can give you many different reasons, little aspects of why that go into the pot. To make the bigger picture, for example, I could say that the environment is just simply too big. There's no way that it's humanly possible for us to cover all that land mass. I could say that there might be a supernatural element to Bigfoot, where he's able to clone or camouflage himself. He might be an extraterrestrial, where he's not even here all the time, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. He might just come here on the odd occasion, someone has a chance sighting, then he's gone again. These are all the different small aspects that go into answering that question as to why we've not found Bigfoot, but there is no one definitive answer. You know, it's not like I can just say, this is why. It's maybe just accumulated through all of those things, and more than what I just mentioned there as well.
My point is that the Sasquatch has been discovered, actually, but that the discovery has not yet been acknowledged. So what we have with this kind of strange situation that people keep discovering the Sasquatch for himself or herself when they see one, but of course they're observing a mammal which is not supposed to exist. And how can scientists have missed 7 foot tall, 600 pound upright mammal? Well, it hasn't been missed, it's been ignored, it's been pushed aside, it's been dismissed. And that's what I find so distressing. So discovery, I mean, sometimes I talk about the unfolding discovery process, and that's more acceptable, I guess. Other times I say, no, it's been discovered, we've got track evidence, film evidence, lots of eyewitness reports and drawings, and the vocalizations I'm starting to study now. Can we not, in the absence of a type specimen, at least discuss the evidence and the very strong possibility that the Sasquatch does exist? And I'm not asking for acceptance, but I am asking for scientific scrutiny of the evidence. I think that if we could just get to that point, it would be very healthy, much healthier than, I think, the present situation.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. It's been a while, but I'm back. We're gonna find Bigfoot. I've had a few setbacks and a few struggles over the last few months, but nothing too, I guess, debilitating. But here we are, Bigfoot. What has been going on? What is new in the Bigfoot community? What kind of, new evidence has come to the table? Well, not a whole lot as far as new groundbreaking evidence. Well, some of the things that I've noticed have been very interesting. I've noticed people, like a relatively large amount of people, going from believer to skeptic almost, which is crazy to me. Nowadays we have more and more people out there going out, joining the search for Bigfoot. And that means, more cameras are out in the wilderness, more people are out there gathering evidence, or at least trying to gather evidence, yet we're still kind of at the same point as we were, a few months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. There's not much in the way of groundbreaking evidence. And for a lot of people, I guess things have been looking grim. For me though, I've turned from, skeptic to believer, which is, quite the opposite of what some people are doing. I don't know, I can't discredit thousands of people who have seen Bigfoot or have, family members who have seen Bigfoot. Too many people are seeing these things. Too many people are encountering them. Too many people know people who have seen these things. I doubt there's thousands of people misidentifying bears. I was reading some article online. It was a Time magazine article, like on the Time website. It was from years back. I think it was from 2014, I want to say. And it said that a DNA study proves Bigfoot never existed. That was more or less the title of this article. There hasn't been any test that has proved Bigfoot doesn't exist. And they're trying to explain in this article that I read that because 30 or so hair samples that were sent in for a DNA test, because none of them yielded Bigfoot results and were identified as, creatures that already are known to exist, that Bigfoot doesn't exist. It just means, what it means is that none of these hair samples were that of Bigfoot. And I think there was 7 out of the 30 or something like that. They couldn't even, get an actual DNA sequence from them. So not even all the samples that were sent in could be identified because of that. But you see a lot of articles like that from big publications that are trying to discredit, the Bigfoot thing. That was the Brian Sykes DNA study. It's a pretty well-known DNA study. A lot of the samples ended up being bears, especially in the Himalayan region. Some of the samples from there that were, thought to be maybe Yeti hair samples ended up being bears. Ancient bears, polar bears, hybrid bears. Which, fine, there's bears in the wilderness. It doesn't mean Sasquatch doesn't exist. Think of the Patterson footage. Now, there's a lot of people who think the Patterson footage is a hoax. But you have a piece of film that has stood the test of time, hasn't actually been proven wrong by anybody. The creature looks spectacular. Patty looks real, moves like a real creature. And she's right there out in the open. For a piece of footage from the 60s, it's pretty clear. But not only do you have that piece of footage, you have a trackway, not just tracks, but a trackway to go along with it, of footprints that were cast. And those casts have also stood the test of time and have not been proven to be hoaxes. So you have multiple different kinds of evidence from that one event that have stood the test of time. And in my opinion, prove that there is something out there. What exactly is it? That's the question. I wish we knew exactly what it was, so we could go about searching for it in a way that's not like a guessing game like it kind of is now. Are we looking for a flesh and blood creature? Are we looking for something that might not always be flesh and blood, that can phase in and out of this reality? We don't really know. I'm open to all the theories. You guys know that. I know a lot of you are as well. I don't think it's a very smart thing to, get into the subject with a firm stance on what you think it could be. I think you have to be open. Of course, look for facts, but theorize and get ideas and put them on the shelf. It's just kind of crazy observing the Bigfoot community nowadays and all the stuff. There's so much going on online. Once you join all these Bigfoot groups, your whole Facebook feed will be Bigfoot content. 60% of it's nonsense. And the rest of it, there's some good stuff in there, but it's a lot of people are becoming skeptical. I don't know. I've talked to a lot of people who I'm pretty sure are telling the truth with their accounts. And, the more and more you talk to people who have had these experiences, the better you can be at reading them, I mean, there's master deceivers out there and liars, but you can get pretty good at finding out if someone's, not telling the truth. A lot of these people are telling the truth. They at least believe that they saw something. And that's good enough for me. That's good enough to get me to go out into the wilderness and look for this thing and to keep pursuing it. And the last few months for me have been pretty crazy. I've been caught up in a bunch of other stuff and investigating other mysteries. and I kind of put Bigfoot on the back burner. But in the last couple weeks, I've been, getting back into it, trying to amp myself up. But then I go online and I'm like, oh man, like things are looking kind of grim. And it's like, just gotta push through that and remain optimistic. I'm convinced that Sasquatch exists out in the Nordegg area in Alberta for sure. And there's locations out there, specific locations where, if a person spent a week or two out there, I'm sure they would become a believer if they knew what they were looking for. And if they were there at the right time of year. But it's like, some of these articles that come out, I bet you they're very similar to newspaper articles that came out when the first rumblings came out about there maybe being a mountain gorilla. They're probably very similar. The mountain gorilla is an animal like with such a small population. I think there's probably about 1,000 of them in the wild or something like that, split up between 2 different areas. I can't remember what the areas are. I think one is Virunga, and I can't remember what the other area is. But there's 2 specific areas where these mountain gorillas exist, and there's only 1,000 of them in total. Like, people wonder how these Sasquatch would remain hidden for so long. All they need is 1,000 of them? That's not a lot distributed through the vast remote wilderness of North America. So you got a species with such a small population living in such a specific area. Before they were found, there was just a mystery, just like Bigfoot. They probably thought of it as a cryptid. And then you think about, well, actually, there's another animal I wanted to mention. There's probably a lot of animals that live in very specific areas and have really tiny populations. Another one I was reading about was the Mangshan viper in China. It's a beautiful snake. One of the most beautiful snakes I've ever seen. If you look at the camouflage pattern on this thing, look at the colors. You have something, these snakes, they think there's only maximum maybe like 500 of them out in the wild, and they live in a very specific area in China. Like one specific area. And look at the camouflage on it. It's a miracle this thing was discovered, but it was. And so it just goes to show you to have a surviving population. You don't need that many, and 500 to 1,000 of these things spread out across the Pacific Northwest and all the way up to Alaska and beyond. Like, it's not like out of the realm of possibility at all. It's very likely that something could remain hidden. How do these creatures survive out in the wilderness through all the elements in the winter? Like, how could they possibly survive without fire? People ask that. Literally every other animal that exists in the North American wilderness does it year-round without fire. They've found a way. So if those animals can do it, something like a Sasquatch with a reasonable level of intelligence and self-awareness can definitely do it. Totally possible. Not out of the realm of possibility. So, where's the fossils? Where's the fossil evidence? You hear that all the time. Where's the fossil evidence? Well, it's an interesting question. I haven't found any fossil evidence of Bigfoot, but I've also not found fossil evidence of a lot of other creatures that are out there in the wilderness. Because to have fossilization, you need a very specific set of, environmental requirements for that to take place. I had an interesting conversation with Ben Walgate from 401 Files about fossilization. And, just have a listen. Like, I know you're a believer that Bigfoot is a extraterrestrial or something like that. But what if we're talking just like flesh and blood? Just flesh and blood. I've personally found like dinosaur bones that are 65 million years old. They're in the fossil record. anyone can go out and find dinosaur bones. There's a history there. There's a lineage. Bigfoot would have to have that too. You know, you would think that there would be something somewhere here in like Western Canada and the United States. There would be some sort of remnants of these things, a history of them. Like, what do you say to that?
So going on the flesh and blood aspect of Bigfoot then, and someone asks me the question as to why we've not found a flesh and blood Bigfoot. You know, you can use the analogy that you found dinosaur bones, but dinosaur bones don't move. If this thing is flesh and blood, it's alive, it's moving around from point A to point B, it's a never-ending goose chase. It's not sitting still at any one time long enough for you to come there and discover it. Also as well, like if you look at where Bigfoot lives, I mean, I'm not sure I know that how long it takes for fossils to actually form, but the elements that need to be in place for a fossil to form, are they present where Bigfoot lives? In these forested areas? You know, the environment from 250 million years ago, 60 million years ago when dinosaurs walked the earth was far different to, you know, the Pacific Northwest now where these Bigfoot creatures are being seen. So I'm not even sure if fossils could be found in the same location that Bigfoot exists. And again, then it goes back to if they can, and that can be proven that yes, well, we found dinosaur fossils in these areas where Bigfoot reports are coming from, so there's no reason we shouldn't find Bigfoot fossils. It might be a numbers game. You know, dinosaurs lived on the earth for millions and millions and millions of years. All those fossils there are left to be found, whereas Bigfoot, the numbers might never have reached a peak like dinosaurs did. There might have only always been at any one time on Earth a select few number of them. And that might be how they live their life. You know, they might live in colonies of 20, and then when the numbers start to reduce, they mate again and they live long lives so they don't have to keep reproducing. There's just so many things that could go into it. It's fascinating and I like to think like this. It's getting me thinking. I've spoken to you before about how recent of a discovery the panda is, okay? I think it's maybe only the last 150, 200 years or something that the panda was discovered. Even though stories were coming back down from the hills, the Himalayas and things, of people seeing this big bear that's black and white, but yet it eats bamboo and it lives in a green environment. People just thought that was so outrageous that it could not possibly be true. But let's just forget about the discovery itself of the panda. Let's put that to a side for a second. How many people was coming back down from these hills in these locations with bones of a panda? You know, because we could ask the same question there. Why is a bone of a panda never been found before it was found? Well, look where it is. Look where it's living. Look at the environment and how rare it would be, or how much of a chance encounter it would be to discover these bones of this bear that no one's yet discovered. That would be so difficult. But now that the panda's been discovered and proven, and it's been put in the records, we know everything about them. We know where they live, what their habitat is, what they eat. So we could now go up there and we could root around in the area where they've been living because we know so much more about them. And chances are we might find a bone now. But strange, because before we couldn't find any and no one did. And yeah, so you could say that, dude. You could say that.
So Ben makes some really, really good points there. I was, curious myself. Like, we're finding all these dinosaur bones. Why can't we find Bigfoot? I mean, to be fair, I haven't found fossilized bones of anything else really, other than dinosaurs. But dinosaurs lived for a really long time. Like Homo sapiens been around for what, a couple 100,000 years max, maybe, something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, so I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But dinosaurs existed on this planet for like many, many millions of years. And probably in very, very high numbers. Like a lot of the bone beds we find where these fossils are found, there are like many specimens in some of these areas, like herds of these things. Usually they're found in like wetlands, or what used to be a wetland, a waterway of some kind. A lot of Alberta here was underwater at one point in time. It was part of the Bearpaw Sea. It was very tropical and very swampy, and there were a lot of, like, that environment is completely different from what most of it is today. I mean, we have swampy areas and places, that where things could get preserved, but the landscape is very much different. The climate is very much different. So You know, if those elements aren't there when the creature dies to preserve it right away, then it won't happen. But it's interesting, actually, thinking like we do have fossils of certain, you know, hominids that we have found. You know, we do have the Gigantopithecus teeth and the parts of the jaw and whatnot. So there are places where, you know, early human has been found and hominids have been found, and it's usually in caves. A lot of bones get preserved in caves. You can find caves in, you know, Canada, in the Yukon, the Bluefish Cave. They found lots of remnants of like Pleistocene animals, things like saber-toothed cats, probably mammoth bones, things of that nature, which had evidence of human tool use on them. Just listen to more of this conversation I had with Ben, and you guys can probably get a better sense. I feel like I'm not doing a very great job of, you know, explaining it, and Ben does a really good job at explaining it. So we're gonna get back into that, but first, what I wanted to share with you guys, we have a new members only page here at Mountain Beast Mysteries called Mountain Beast Mysteries Beyond Bigfoot. It's on our own website, it's on the Mountain Beast Mysteries website, and well, have a look. Welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries Beyond Bigfoot, the new place to get access to our exclusive members only content. Beyond Bigfoot features 2 new Mountain Beast Mysteries shows, Beyond Bigfoot and Diving Deeper. In Beyond Bigfoot, we look at essentially every other mystery in the world of the unexplained. We're not holding back here at all. We're going to be talking about everything from the shadow people to the Skinwalker Ranch to time travel. The dog can sense that there's something up with these things. They're like a malevolent, bad entity. In Diving Deeper, we focus on mysteries of the ancient world. Everything from the pyramids of Giza to the Ark of the Covenant to the Nazca lines in Peru. For the last, I guess, over 100 years, people have been wondering and trying to figure out what this thing is, who made it, you know, what is it for? How does it work? Some of the episodes you can expect this month are the Hoya Baciu Forest, Ouija boards, Giants of North America, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, Skinwalker Ranch, the Dark Side of the Moon, and the Pyramid Mystery. Both of these shows will have new episodes every Monday and Friday. But that's not all. We have a third program that really ventures beyond in terms of subject matter. The Fungal Experience discusses the highly controversial topic of psilocybin and psychedelic mushrooms. We discuss the spiritual aspect of psilocybin, and I share my own personal mushroom experiences. I gotta warn you though, this is a series that is quite personal, and I don't hold back. It gets very weird, and some of you will definitely be uncomfortable. On top of everything I've mentioned, members have access to my collection of unedited, raw UFO footage, which I've shot over the course of the summer. I welcome you all to have an unedited look at all of my footage, and I challenge you to discover things in these clips that I probably missed. Now, if you're a current Patreon member, don't worry, you all get access to this for free. Just go to the Mountain Beast Mysteries Patreon page, and there you'll discover how to get free access to Beyond Bigfoot. Go to mountainbeastmysteries.com/beyondbigfoot and hit the gray sign up now button to get access to all of our new video content. I hope to see you all there.
I once watched a documentary and they was talking about how rare fossilization is and what it takes for an animal to become fossilized. You have to have the right soil sediment, you have to have the right acidic soil, right pH levels and everything else that comes into it. Then the animal has to be laid there for the right amount of time, and the weather that shortly occurs after the animal falls down dead has to be the correct kind of weather. Sediment has to fall onto it. It's just a whole big process that has to be perfect in every way for a fossil to be created. You know, it's not every animal is fossilized. People assume that everything that falls down dead will one day be a fossil. That's not true. Fossils only happen because the correct elements, the correct area and location all happened and took place at the right time for this to happen. And you know, if you don't get Bigfoot falling down on the correct soil or sediment, and the weather that follows shortly after he's died isn't the correct weather, his bones just will not be fossilized. You know, it's a chance in a million for a fossil to even be created. And the reason that so many fossils are found, because once you say it's a chance in a million, people will say, oh, well, why do we find so many of them? That's because millions of years have gone by. So that chance in a million has happened millions and millions and millions of times. Yeah, and I guess I mean, I don't know because I don't live in these areas like you do, but we still do have deers here. We still do have, like, badgers and foxes and things like that. I don't know of any stories of some guy in the woods digging around doing some kind of bushcraft shelter that just dug up badger bones or deer bones, or fox bones. They don't exist. Once they're dead and the flesh and meat of the animals being eaten away by all the scavengers, the bones will then sink into the ground, but what's the chances of someone finding them in the woods? I've never heard of it. We find them in caves. We do find bones of, saber-tooths and stuff here in caves, and wolves and bear in some of these caves in the UK. They've definitely been discovered. But again, you look at the elements that are inside the cave to preserve these things. They're perfect. The setting is completely perfect to preserve things like that. So for someone to say, why have we never found Bigfoot bones out in the woods? When did you last find bones of a bear that were under the surface soil? Never. When did you ever find bones of a deer that were under the surface soil? Never. It's just a chance in a million to find a fossilized bone of any kind, let alone a Bigfoot.
Those are some very, very good points. And now that I think about it, usually places where dinosaurs have died and become like fossilized were very like wet, muddy areas. A lot of times in like rivers, or dinosaurs that have like drifted out to sea and then sunk to the bottom of the ocean. It's usually very specific environments like that. So I suppose if there was going to be Bigfoot, Sasquatch, in the fossil record, they would have to die in an area where, they would be preserved to a degree, like in a wetland or a swamp of some kind, or in a river, or, out in the sea and on the seafloor. Because back in the day, like here in Alberta, it was all, like a lot of this area was underwater. It was part of the Bear Paw Sea. And a lot of remains that we find nowadays, especially up north in the oil sands, are, dinosaurs that either lived in the sea and died there, or, their carcasses, their remains were, washed out into the sea, and they, by some miracle, were able to be preserved. So Bigfoot would have to die in an area where it would be preserved. Which I don't know if that would ever happen if they are very tight-knit family units. If they stuck together, if they were actively trying to stay hidden, if they gathered their remains of their dead and hid them or disposed of them or like destroyed them somehow so that they would never be found, then of course you would never find that. So, and if these creatures do keep tabs on each other, they will know if somebody's missing. If one of them are missing, if one of them, dies, they'd know that, and they would know that, maybe they got to go out and find the corpse and get rid of it. So, very, very interesting to think about for sure. I think if Sasquatch bones were to be found, they would be located in a cave probably. But the thing is, these creatures are so smart, they're so intelligent, and they keep tabs on each other. If there was a cave that one of these creatures was in, you could probably guarantee that the rest of the creatures that are, are relatives or family of whatever creature died in that cave, they'd probably be aware of that cave as well, and they'd recover the bones. I bet you if these creatures have been living in North America for thousands of years, they probably know where every accessible cave is. They probably know where more of them are compared to what we know, because they live out there, and they would probably utilize these caves to survive in the same sense that early humans did. A lot of, early humans have been found in caves, the remains of early people, different kinds of hominids. I'm pretty sure most of the remains we have of some of these early hominids have been found in caves and nowhere else. It's not like somebody's walking along a river and they discover fossils of some sort of humanoid. That happens with dinosaurs. People will be walking the banks of a river and they'll find a dinosaur fossil or fossils, exposed on the riverbank. The sediments, they wash away, and the elements, wash everything away and reveal a fossil or a skeleton or whatever. You're not going to find that with Bigfoot. But these things are smart. These things are very intelligent. They're actively trying to stay hidden. They live in the vast North American wilderness where there's lots of concealment and many areas that are very inaccessible and hard to get to. And on top of that, they're actively trying to stay hidden. And they have a small population. So of course, they're going to be near impossible to find. I was watching for like a third time Seth Breedlove's documentary on the trail of Bigfoot, The Discovery, over at Small Town Monsters. And in that film, they showcase this nesting area that was found, I think by, I can't remember, a logger or a surveyor or something. It was discovered by like a worker in the remote, deep wilderness, an area where there's huckleberries everywhere, bushes everywhere. But when you watch that film and you look at the environment, go on like Tubi TV or wherever it is, YouTube maybe, and watch this film and look at the environment where these nests are. It's like berry bushes and shrubs about this high, maybe a bit higher, super, super dense. And these nests are on the ground in this bushy, shrubby area in the middle of nowhere. These creatures could be just lying on the ground in their nest, and you wouldn't even know. When we go out into the wilderness, when we're out hiking on trails and exploring the wilderness, we don't pick the most dense area of bush and try and walk through it. We just don't. At least I don't anyways. I can't, vouch for everyone, but, just pick the nastiest, deepest, thickest bush. And that sounded kind of wrong, but pick that, and they could very well be hiding in there. You wouldn't have any idea if these things were like lying on the ground, hiding in a nest. You would have no idea, and they could just lie there. Look at some of these areas. If you compare that area with the huckleberries in that film to where they find the mountain gorilla, it's not all that different. I mean, it is different because it's in Africa, but lots of foliage, lots of concealment, and in a very remote, specific area with an animal that has such a small population. I don't know. I think we do have enough evidence that suggests that it is real. I mean, most of us here are already leaning towards it being real anyways, but there is a lot of evidence that hasn't been disproven. Like I said, the Patterson footage and the trackway cast from that event, like that is pretty solid. There's lots of other track casts that are very similar to that. There was track casts in China from a Bigfoot-like creature that looked nearly identical to those of Patty, with the same mid-tarsal break and everything. And that, I heard Jeff Meldrum talking about that in his presentation on the Patterson-Gimlin footage, because he was actually in China. And it was very fascinating to listen to that. There's something going on. But what is that even, though? If you get the same kind of creature on the other side of the world, in China, I guess Gigantopithecus comes from China. I don't know if people are still supporting this Gigantopithecus theory. A lot of people believe that it could be a descendant of Gigantopithecus that maybe throughout, the period of time between Gigantopithecus and now developed the way to just walk upright. I think the common consensus is that Gigantopithecus spent most of its time on all fours. But then again, we don't know what Sasquatch does when it's by itself. It could be on all fours. It could be on the ground. So, who really knows? I know people who have found knuckle prints in the ground, in the mud, and actual footprints too. So, here in Alberta. The evidence is out there. People are finding it. I don't know. I sometimes I feel like the Bigfoot. Well, we have this community. Like we have the Bigfoot community, and a lot of it's just like nonsense. It's nonsense. You don't see actual scientists who are out looking for undiscovered species of whatever in the jungle, real animals. You don't have people in those groups investing so much time and energy and money into having a conference to find an undiscovered type of like a lizard or something, you know. But we have all this nonsense in the Bigfoot community, a lot of wasted energy and time and money going to like conferences and shows and meetups and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of weird, to be honest. I think it's kind of weird. And I think if we put that energy and that money and everything that went into those conferences into actual research and getting out to the field, that would probably find it by now. Like, we probably would have found it. Take all the people that show up for one Bigfoot conference and put them out into the bush. It's like 1,000 people more. I don't know how many people go to these things. We'll just say 1,000 people. It's a really good Bigfoot conference. 1,000 people in the bush looking for Bigfoot over a weekend. Why aren't we doing that? Have the Bigfoot conference out in the bush. It's a camp out. It's 1,000 people going off combing the woods looking for these things. You know? I don't know. I just think we could be working more efficiently. But the world of Bigfoot is a weird world. I don't really know what else to say in this video. We're just jumping back into it here. So this is kind of a introduction to the new Mountain Beast Mysteries. I mean, we got a new look, a little bit darker, a little bit more mysterious. We got different music. We have Beyond Bigfoot, Mountain Beast Mysteries Beyond Bigfoot. Don't forget to check it out. Go visit the website. Thanks for watching this video. It's great to be back. We'll see you next time.